What is up, gamers? Today I don't have a question. Today we're just gonna be playing Stardew. Um, and so yeah, I'll probably just be rambling about stuff or very quiet, but I've got a bit, so I just wanted to get through some more Stardew. I've been very much enjoying this game. I feel like it really picked up in the second half, even though it was all dictated by my own pace I wanted to go at. So kind of weird, but pretty cool. All right, let's see how this thing works. Um, so gems. So it's not. So maybe. Okay, I see. I see. Cool, cool. Um. So yeah. Psychology wise, I'm like I don't know. I haven't been like I study every day. Um. But it's kind of weird because I don't have any like specific topics to talk about. Um, let's see. Mostly there's like I've been go in order to study for uh for the like counselor's exam, basically our bar exam. I'm listening to like the Encyclopedia of Counseling, which is really cool. I probably most people would probably not recommend something like this, but legitimately I'm kind of like if you're if you feel like it, you should absolutely if you want to learn more about psychology, um I feel like reading that book just for pleasure, like it's a book that like someone like me would absolutely just read for pleasure. So it's kind of crazy. Um but genuinely like it's fun. Um like he phrases it in a very like I feel like most textbooks are like and then the study of this thing was like but he doesn't do that at all. He actually purposefully phrases it to be like fun conversational and stuff like that. Like he advertised it as that and I was like, okay, that's good and all, but like I'm not sure how successful you're going to be at doing that. And then like the more I listened to it, the more I was like, wait, this is actually like super easy to listen to. It's a ton of information, so I only do it for 20 minutes a day. I guess that's something that like theoretically I could talk about, but I don't know exactly what I'd say about it. Like I just think that you know, um when it comes to like when it comes to how do I put this? Um like I feel like people often kind of um are like, oh well, in order to do this thing, I need to like, I got to be one of those people because they see all these like things like motivational videos. I know that one's going around like crazy, is the one with like the water and everything like that. He but like a lot of people are like, oh, in order to be like successful and like in order to be disciplined, I need to be someone who can like do something for like 8 hours a day and really commit to it and stuff like that. And I'm just like, no, just do like 5 minutes a day. I swear, like the habits that are like the longest for me, besides like working out and streaming, things that like it would be kind of weird to just do it for 5 minutes a day. Like there things like that are things like working out. Like other things like for instance like things I do every day are is like like I learn Korean, I learn about psychology stuff, I do all that sort of stuff. And like psychology stuff's great because like when you start purposefully listening to something that like it's not just like white noise, like you can actually um okay, I see. Like when you like what was I saying? Um, so like when you do something, when you start like listening to like educational material or you start listening to like audiobooks and stuff like that, it's kind of crazy because you kind of realize how much time you spend even just idly and stuff. Like I do this very intentionally, and so I think there's a huge difference between doing this just to fill space in your life versus like actually having a purpose. Or and I think there's a very delicate balance because I'm very mindful. I know when I'm being toxically productive and I don't let myself do it if it's for that purpose. But like, you know, I will like even just in between moments. If I just have like one free minute, I'll like listen to another minute of something. But a lot of people don't do stuff like that because they're like, oh well, it's just another minute, I might as well like scroll and stuff like that. But like when you do stuff in the in between moments, like when you start listening to stuff or progressing just microscopic insignificant amounts whenever you can, then like it's like actually kind of crazy how much progress you make over time when you do that sort of stuff. So like I will literally be like, okay, well like for my encyclopedia of counseling, like in order to study, I one question, like him going through one question takes about like 90 seconds to 2 minutes. So like every time I've got like a free minute, I'll be like, I'll just listen to another one and stuff. And like you'd think that those minutes wouldn't add up because it'll just be, like if I'm just like going to the bathroom or something, or I'm just like, oh, I got to get something out of my car. Like if I just got like an extra 60 seconds or so, I will intentionally start listening to I will see how much progress that adds up to over time. And it's like crazy. Like it's crazy how much that now there's like a big caveat to this because a lot of people are like, oh yeah, gotta be productive, gotta be productive, gotta be listening to like a finance podcast like in one ear, and then in the other ear I gotta be listening to like motivational stuff, and then I gotta be like learning a language in another ear instead. Like I feel like there's a huge difference in that because like it all depends on whether or not you're doing it as like a coping strategy. Like I think that like if you're uncomfortable not doing anything, then like or just like being in the moment, then like that's when it should be concerning. But I think that if you can cultivate happiness, weirdly you'll still become productive and you'll do it better because like now it's not dependent on you running away from an emotion. And I've talked for hours and hours about that sort of stuff. Um, but like I have a lot of behaviors that like if someone were to be from the outside looking in and not know my personal experience, like they would consider me very probably like toxically productive with how much stuff I cram into every day. Um, but it's just because like I found that like, I do actually carve out time. Um, I do actually intentionally carve out time um for like me just relaxing and me and doing all this other stuff. Like I actually relax probably more than most people, but I also probably work more than most people. That sounds weird, and it's because like how could you do both? Like aren't you either relaxing or doing this other thing? Well, like like I don't consider like I use this word like it's the plague, and so like a lot of people might like get annoyed at like my boomery sort of language with this, but like genuinely like I don't really consider things like scrolling to be like relaxing, because like I never see people be like get off of their phone after they're like scrolling on Twitter or something and then be like, oh, I feel so much better. I feel so relaxed and stuff. Like to me, relaxing is intentional. It's like taking in the moment, taking a moment to breathe, just laying down. Even like listening to like calming music or something like that. Just like something that's like genuinely like I don't consider zoning out like relaxing. I think relaxing is like an intentional emotion that you try to cultivate. I don't think it's the product of like zoning out and becoming like a zombie for a while. But yeah, just reading this. Oh my gosh, I love talking about philosophy. He knows me so well. It's like all I do, actually. Um, and so, yeah, um, but I think that like like people like think of, because think about how much that screws you. Like you think of something that's not actually relaxing as like your relaxation time. So like you are literally getting like no benefit out of that time. It doesn't relax your mind, it doesn't re-energize you, and it doesn't even make you happy. It just like, but it's like, oh, it's better that than being bored. Like I'd rather do that than being bored. It's like okay, so you're sacrificing, so like congratulations, you're not bored, and also you're not doing anything. Like you're not doing anything with your time. Like life gave us a cheat code to never be bored at the cost of all of our motivation and our emotional regulating skills, and we said, "Yup, I'll sure do that." Which like I don't think is stupid. Like I think that that's like a logical choice to come to a degree, but like I think people are realizing how like little it's actually worth it to like go about life like that. Because I feel like you know, like I'm trying to think. Um so like, you know, when I relax, I'm very like in the moment of it, and I very much like think before I do anything, and I say like, which sounds exhausting, but I think it's genuinely more exhausting to just give in to autopilot. Like um because you're literally just like um instead you should just be like, okay, like how do I want to spend my time? Like fast forward to like later today, what do I want to have spent my time doing? And then like that's what you should pick, generally speaking. That's like at least my opinion. um is that, you know, it's like I um like so, you know, even with things like Stardew, like it feels like it's like, oh, this shouldn't be like relaxing and stuff like that, because you're like actively playing a game or whatever, or like, oh, or like, oh, what, you need to be progressing in something. It's just like, no, I just realized that like if I could choose between like scrolling and doing this, then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna feel good in an hour, that like I'm gonna be like, I'm glad I played Stardew. It was both relaxing and I progressed towards something. Which, not that that's like necessary. So like this is why it's so hard to like not fall into both toxic productivity and like anti-toxic productivity, where it's like, no, I should never do something if it means that, like I should learn to sit still, which means I should just do nothing with my life. Like this is why it's so hard. Um This is why it's so hard to do that sort of stuff, because like there's so many nuances to it, and it really depends on your like internal ability to monitor your own motivations for why you do the things that you do. Um so, you know, like if you're so like when you do an action, understand like how would I feel about not doing this right now? Like how would I feel if I couldn't do this right now? And if the answer is like uncomfortable or sad and whatever and everything, like really dig into that, because the important thing, it's like, oh, what does it matter if shouldn't negative emotions be motivating me and stuff like that? And like once again, it's so nuanced, because like yes, to a degree they can send you a signal that you should do something, and that can be like a nice reminder, but it shouldn't control your actions. You should always be the one in control. So like if your brain is like, hey, we feel like we're not really progressing in life, that could genuinely be a good signal for you to get, and like an important one for you to understand. So like at that point, it's like, yeah, um like at that point, it's like, yeah, so like that's good that it's giving you that reminder. I often get a lot of reminders that I'm just like, hey, like, is what we're doing right now really worth it? Like, and then like, it's like just a nice check-in. It doesn't mean that I have to be like, oh no, now I have to soothe this negative emotion in me. And it doesn't have to be like, no, I can't be toxically productive. Oh, like, because then you're rejecting it no matter what. And then it controls you. So like, just allow the emotion to come up, give you that signal, and just treat it like a little check-in. Like a friend's coming by and be like, hey man, just checking how you're doing. Are you having fun? Are you happy with the choices you're making right here? And it's just like, and then like it just makes you think about it. But like the problem comes when you know, laziness and toxic productivity both come from an intolerance of a certain negative signal. So like if you can't stand the idea of being lazy, then like that's a bad reason to start doing stuff. And if you can't handle the negative reaction of like, oh, I can't take a break from my doom scrolling because then it's like it's less dopaminergic, then I have to deal with all this negative emotion that I'm running from and everything like that. Like that's all like it's all the same. Do you guys get that? Like it's just this it's just you're literally just running from it, but it manifests in different ways. But it's weird because they both consider themselves to be like polar opposites. Like it's just like the lazy people are like, oh no, I'm nothing like those like Sigma male grindset people. And the Sigma male grindset people are like, nah, I'm built different. I'm not part of those like the lazy crowd who just spends all day gaming and everything like that. And you're right, they are different in many ways, but like it's literally just different manifestations of the same fear. And the people who are truly successful in life and can move wherever they want are the ones who are able to tolerate the negative emotion, understand it, and view themselves outside of that negative emotion. And just be like, okay, like, what do I want? Like, what do I actually want? In like a year, and like, even then, once again, there's like no, this is why there's no concise way to just give you like advice and it works for everyone. Because people hear advice all the time and they don't progress in life. It's because it's so freaking confusing. So like, then there's another caveat. It's like, you want to base life generally on like, what am I gonna be happy that I did? Like, what's the best choice right now? But also, you don't want to like let the idea of regret control your life either. Which sounds kind of weird because we just accept like, yeah, we should live life of no regrets and stuff like that. But like, then you think about that, then the emotion of regret controls what you do. Like, the avoidance of regret controls what you do. And that sounds weird because it's like, how can you regret something and it be the right choice and stuff? And it's just like, it's because like people who avoid regret their entire life end up doing nothing. Because like they don't want to do that. And so it's really weird, but like it's just like just like how the avoidance of anger and like the avoidance of boredom, all these things can manifest in like a million different ways. In that same way, like in the same way that can manifest in like a million different ways, like there's a million different ways for there's a million different ways for like the avoidance of regret to manifest in negative ways. So like don't base what you do off of like that's generally the way. Once again, you have to maintain a balance. Like in the same way that in the same way that like a negative emotion can be a nice reminder or a nice like guide, but it's important that it doesn't control what you do. Like in that exact same way, don't like go about life in this sort of like don't go about life being like, oh well, I need to listen to the regret, oh I need to listen to the fear of being lazy and stuff like that. Like instead just be like I use this metaphor a lot, like your mind should be like you're like the king or queen, and then And then like your emotions and thoughts are like informants. Like they're people who are like, hey, maybe we should do this. But like a ruler that just listens to and obeys every idea that and follows through with every idea that their informants have is like not being a good leader, because then they have no personal agency, and they are just like, they're essentially just like a talking piece. Like, then no wonder why people lose sense of themselves when all they do is listen to their emotions. It's because like you're not in control, the emotions are. And like simultaneously, if you have so much agency, quote unquote, that you like, and you're so full of pride that you're like, no, I will never listen to my informants, I know what's best, not the informants, then you're gonna be blind to like what's happening in the world, because like, and like you're gonna lose a lot of variability in your ideas, because like there's so much nuance to that. You can't just be like, oh well, this means that this is always bad, sort of thing. Like that just doesn't, I don't know, I don't really agree with that sort of thing. And so yeah, like I'm just like, I say this all the time, but like genuinely, like the way I see it to go about life is to like have the nuance of knowing that like your emotions are just there as informants, but you should be the one in charge. This is because people always think it's like so black and white. They think it's like choose one or the other. It's like, oh, do I listen to my emotions and become an emotional, irrational person and maybe find happiness that way at the sacrifice of like living an efficient life? Or do I give in to logic and like ignore my emotions? And it's like these parts are not like independent of the brain. Like you're like, people screw themselves because they like they refuse to accept that neither one is the problem. Like it's actually your lack of acceptance of those factors, of them coexisting, is the problem. Like if you were like if you were able to view this if you were able to view life from a lens of like, okay, we should incorporate a little logic, a little emotion, and a lot of myself into this. Just use emotion and logic as a tool, because everyone's like trying to once again avoid regret by finding out like what is the right way to determine what I do next. But the tragedy is that you will never know what the next choice should be, because like all you have is the information that you have right now, and then we unfortunately don't have the gift of hindsight. No one can tell the future. So like that's why people just say like the overly simplistic advice of just do it, because like they're kind of right. Like it's just like I forgot what fallacy it is, but like it's like your first plan will always be your worst plan, regardless of how much you plan to do it, because it is you when you are the least informed and experienced. But everyone stays stuck at the first part because they refuse to deal with the failure. Well, like, but then everyone also beats themselves up of like, oh, if only I started earlier, if only I started earlier. And then it's like, oh, well, why don't you start today? And like, oh, well, you know, like I've got this, and there's this reason I don't do it. There's this reason I don't do it. Like there's like a million reasons you don't do it. And like, notice that part of your brain. Notice how intolerant you are of failure, because, oh my God, what if I regret it? What if I'm like, oh, that was stupid? But like, you're all trying to like see into the future. You're like hoping that like magically, if you just think about it long enough, you'll like be able to avoid making mistakes. But like, that's like what all these like motivational speakers, and like to their point, they're like right. They're like, you should just do it because you will make mistakes. And then people are like, oh no, well, like, you know, I don't, like, I'm different. You see, like, I can't afford to make any more mistakes. And it's just like, you literally have to. Because, like, inaction is a mistake. Like, that, like, inaction is, like, something that you can regret. And, like, people know this all too well. So, like, you know, people are willing to admit that pausing is... Like, we conveniently all forget that, like, we regret not doing anything when we're scared of doing stuff. Like, we conveniently forget that, like, it's within our control to, like, just do stuff. But, like, we don't accept that. We're like, no, well, I mean, like, yeah, I get that I shouldn't, like, just wait around forever. But no, I will get around to it. I'm just going to do it, like, tomorrow, you know? And it's like, okay, write down every time you say you're going to do something tomorrow, write it down and actually see if you do that. But you know what's the funny thing? I'm saying this very, like, sarcastically. Because you know what? No one's going to do that because they know that I'm right. Like, it's like, why is your brain going to calculate that as an inefficient action to take? Because it knows what the result's going to be. But, like, it'll come up with all these little things of, like, oh, no, well, I just won't do it because I could be doing better things with that time. It's like, okay, log what you do today. Literally for the rest of the day, just log what you do today and then look back at it. And I'm not even saying judge things by a spectrum of like, oh, like, was that a productive thing to do? I'm saying judge things by like, am I glad that I did that? Not did it work out. Those are two very, very different things. It's so powerful when like you can fail and be like, oh, that's good. I got a failure out of the way. Like, and it's like, it's not like, and even the tiny little ways that we talk about progression can be toxic. So like, I don't like the mentality of like, I'll do better. I'll succeed next time. I'm like, no, I don't like that mentality. I'm just like, okay, I failed this time. I'm going to try again. Like, you don't know because then you saying like, I will succeed next time. What are you doing? That's you admitting in a way to your brain that like, it's kind of being intolerant of the idea of failing. Like, say like, yeah, I failed and I might fail again next time. And that's okay. I might fail the time after that. I might fail the time after that. Like, there's you can fail a million times. But don't like, I don't know. I just don't like this mentality of like, you can do it. You're going to be able to do it immediately. It's like, you don't know if you can do it. You don't know if the next time you'll be able to do it. But like, notice how like, if you need the idea of I can do it or I'll do it next time to move forward in life, then what you believe is within your grasp determines what actions you take because you're so intolerant of wasting energy. And this is adaptive because like the brain doesn't like to like use up energy all willy-nilly and just be like, oh yeah, I gotta like use so much energy and everything like that. Like that's it doesn't like doing that. And that's like good because it needed to conserve energy back in the day. But now this has like resulted in people doing nothing all day because they're so risk averse. And like in modern society, you know, we're not chasing down like woolly mammoths and stuff anymore. In modern society, we're like doom scrolling because like we feel insecure about stuff that happened in the past. Like, and so that's why I'm like, okay, I'm so much more like, if we were back in like the Stone Age, maybe I would say, yeah, it's a good idea to be like lazy because you need to store up that energy. But it's just like, people are chronically storing up energy for nothing. Like they don't end up doing anything with that energy that they're storing up. So I'm just like, you need to start, and obviously there's a million factors and I think it's very person dependent on how you move forward. But like, the first step is just taking notice of that part of your brain that like the moment that you try to start doing something, like what happens to your motivation, like what happens to your motivation and like, because you feel so stupid. You're like, oh my God, I'm so stupid. Why don't I just get started? And then it's like, and then you're like, okay, let's start doing stuff. And then it's like, oh no, well actually here's all these reasons that we can't. now that I think about it, now that we're actually here having to do the thing, here's actually all the reasons why it's actually optimal for me to do it later. Notice that little tricky part of your brain. And then like this is something that like doesn't come from science. This just comes from like my own life and curiosity and everything like that. Like cuz I don't do this. But I think that like if people did do that, like it sounds so weird because I'm like, I don't do this because I don't need to do this. But for people who struggle with this sort of stuff, I wonder if this would work for them. Like when you're very motivated, because they probably won't do this because then they'll be like, oh no, it's a waste of time because I could be productive and stuff like that. If you can bring yourself to do it, do this. When you're feeling very motivated, give yourself all the things, like write down all the things that your mind is telling you. Like, and all the reasons you should do the thing. And then when you're unmotivated, and a very easy way to be unmotivated is start to do the thing. And then all these reasons why you can't do it right now will conveniently come up. And then write those down. And then be like, and then when you're motivated again, look at the reasons you shouldn't. And then when you're less motivated, look at the reasons you should. And like people are like, no, but then I'll lose my motivation and everything. But like this is the problem, is that whenever you're motivated, you avoid anything that could make you demotivated. And whenever you're demotivated, you avoid anything that could make you motivated because your brain is really struggling and it really doesn't want to do it subconsciously. Like you may consciously be like, come on brain, do it, but like there's a big part of you that's like, I really don't want to do this right now. And then like, but that's the thing, is that like the people are so afraid because like once again the emotional consequences control what these people do. And so like what you need to do is you need to have the whole list with you at all times. And then like think to yourself like, okay, if I like and then like here's a great thing that I think that it works for parenting and it works for like yourself. Be like, okay, because everyone likes to be like, oh, I wish I could just make myself unmotivated do something. But we think of our motivation in hindsight as like a stupid illogical thing. But then we almost become like enlightened or like think we become enlightened when we start actually trying to do it, because then all these reasons we weren't thinking about before come to the surface. And so look at that list of all the factors, all the reasons you should do it and all the reasons you shouldn't do it. Decide whether you still think it's a good idea to pursue it despite the bad things. And then if the answer is no, then that's fine. You don't have to do it. I'm not making you. You're the one who came up with the idea. But if you do decide to do it, it's a very easy thing to come up with. Like because part of the reason that you don't do it should probably consist of like one of the main reasons you don't do it should probably also consist of the idea of like, okay, well, I shouldn't do it because of like one of the reasons I shouldn't do this activity is because like it's not as fun. And if you don't do that, if you don't write that down, you're probably lying to yourself. But just be like, it's not as fun to do this thing. I really could be doing other fun things with my time. So like I'm investing time in something that may not even work out. So that's obviously not an easy thing to do, right? So then a beautiful thing you can decide, and it sounds so weird, like, oh, if only I could just decide to do this. I'm like, no, because before you're making that decision, because here's the important thing. Before you're making that decision with like the caveat of like, oh, like with this data, I'm coming to this conclusion that I should be doing this thing. And then the brain has a trump card. it brings up the things that you don't think about. And it's like, oh, well, I made that decision back when I wasn't thinking about this. Now I know how not worth it is, right? I know how worthless it is to do this sort of thing because now I have all the data. There's all these reasons to not do it. I just wasn't thinking about all the reasons to not do it. Like, I've got all these reasons to not do this specific activity. And then, so instead, when you have all the data, when you've written down all of both sides, then decide to yourself, okay, like, when I feel like there is zero purpose to doing this, when I literally, like, I'm getting no dopamine out of it, and my brain is even telling me, and I can't even come up with a counter argument, it is telling me that there is zero purpose to doing this. What do I want to do? Do I still want to push through? Do I still want to progress with this thing, even though my brain sees literally no purpose? Do I want to do this thing with zero motivation? Or do I want to give into it and like relax and do whatever it tells me to do? And then like, it's beautiful because it's like, okay. And then like, here's the great thing. You can end this cycle anytime you want to, willingly. But like, basically have it be like, you have to do the thing if you told yourself you had to do it. And then later, like, make a deal with yourself. I can quit when I have done the thing like I did the last time I forced myself. The last time I forced myself to do it and I did it. And I wish I hadn't made myself do that thing. I wish I didn't do it. Like, on like a cognitive level, not just like an emotional, like risk avoidance way. Like, truly think back on it and be like, I wish I didn't go work out. I wish I didn't write another chapter of my book and stuff. You're not allowed to decide this in the moment because it's not going to feel good in the moment. So your brain, as it's doing it, is of course going to want to avoid it. Like a day or two after, reflect on what you did and think like, was that a good use of my time? And if you ever decide no, then it's like, great. So you don't want to push through. Fantastic. At least you can commit now. At least you can understand like, oh, okay, this path actually isn't worth doing it. Like, and so like, yeah, like think about what you get out of it, what you don't get out of it. And then just actually come to the decision to like either do it or not doing it. But like, your life shouldn't be like, oh, I want to do this thing. And then like, you don't do it because like, then like, cause like your brain brings out another part that typically isn't visible to you. And it's like, oh, but actually you didn't think about this thing. This is the thing that we didn't want to do and stuff like that. Like, it shouldn't be this like trap card. Like, aha, I got you. You didn't think about this. It shouldn't be that constant back and forth battle. What your brain should be doing, what your brain should be doing instead is what was I trying to say? Like, what your brain should be doing instead is just always looking at all the data. And if your brain kind of struggles with this like blindness that where like when you're motivated, you refuse to see the negatives and you only think the positives because you're so afraid of being demotivated. And when you're demotivated, like you've got a huge cognitive bias towards not doing it and stuff, then like bring out the list whether you're motivated or whether you're not motivated. And then decide like, okay, an hour from now, what am I going to be happier that I did? And then be like, and then like, you know, like what an hour from now, am I going to be happier with a life where I did this? And okay. Even if it's like, yeah, but like, I really don't want to spend the next hour doing it. It's like, okay. So like, is that worth it to be happy for an hour, even if we're going to regret it later? And if the answer is ever yes, then like, great. At least you intentionally chose that option. But like, do you guys get how like the avoidance of like, that we try to cultivate a certain mental state like motivation through ignoring factors that actually exist. So, like, you have things that just demotivate you, but, like, you refuse to look at them because, oh, if I look at them, then I'm going to be demotivated. I'm going to realize that I don't want to do this thing and stuff like that. It's like, okay, how's that going? What happens when you start to do the thing? Do you, like, just actually forget about the things that demotivate you? No, of course you don't. You think a ton about it. That they're literally just lying in wait. So rather than letting it jump scare you, think about the negative consequences very intently. Like, literally just continuously think about them. Be like, oh, I don't want to do this because of this. I don't want to do this because of this. And then notice the emotion come up and well up when you do that. And notice that it's just an emotion. It's just a thing trying to convince you to do one thing. And it's like, okay, this isn't about my emotional state. This is about cultivating a specific life that I want to be a part of. A specific life that I want to be in. Very weird. Very weird, kind of tangent-y thing. There's no, oh my goodness. Your son is depressed. But yeah, no, that's kind of like, it's very, like, unscientific in many ways. It's just stuff that's helped me and a lot of other people. There could be a million reasons why this stuff, like, why you have specific roadblocks that don't let you do this sort of stuff. But, like, the problem is that if you live life, like, if you live life on this axis of if you live like life on this axis of like how much dopamine do I get out of this thing? Oh, I want to like write a book because it'll be fun. But like you also have all this negative emotional energy attached to it. If you live life based on how much fun you're gonna have, we'll name him Leo because MK Leo, yeah, baby. No, we'll even be extra memey. We'll do the MK. Hi again. I'm just kind of talking about motivation. Thank you for coming. Thank you for always coming by the stream. I'm just kind of talking about like motivation and why people lose motivation when they like kind of, you know this cycle of like when you like kind of this cycle of like I want to do something really bad and it's just like, why don't you do it? It's like, oh, because I'm stupid or because I'm lazy. And it's all these like, frankly kind of BS answers that just don't track with any sort of actual like logic. Like that, and it's literally just like these ego statements. And like the reality is like, why don't you do these things? It's like, because when I think of doing them, all these reasons that I don't think about when I'm motivated rise to the surface. And so like, why did you choose to do the thing? Because you weren't looking at the full picture. And now your brain's like, oh, well, now I have a reason to not do it because see, I wasn't thinking about this thing. And then that, boy, is that sure a convenient excuse to do it. But then like, if you tell these people to start listening, if you tell these people to start thinking about those things all the time, like just look at the whole picture as it is. They're like, no, well, I kind of need to lie to myself because then I won't be motivated at all. It's like, okay, well, you're not doing anything anyways. You're perpetually caught in this state of being motivated, but not actually doing anything. So the motivation's worthless. Like, do you get that? Like, it's just like the motivation doesn't make any difference if you don't actually do something with it. So like, what I found is more beautiful is the ability to do stuff regardless of your motivation level. And that comes with just being intentional and just being like, yeah, am I willing to like, so like my brain is going to tell me like this task is worthless. Like it will not yield any gain, like financially, status wise, anything like that. And like, even if I write a book, it's going to be bad and you're not going to get any dopamine out of it. So those are the reasons you shouldn't do it. And those are pretty dang good reasons to us. And then when you, and then you don't, and then of course you don't make the decision because the entire reason you wanted to make that choice in the first place is because of how much like dopamine and pride and pleasure. Like I want to work out because I want to get pride. And then like, why don't we work out? Because we feel too ashamed of who we are now. Oh, I want to write a book because then, you know, like I can share my great ideas with the world. And it's like, okay, how's that gonna work out? When you start to write the book and you feel stupid about your ideas. Do you see how like the calculation of pride to shame determines whether or not you work out? The calculation of pride to shame determines whether or not you write a book. And even like on the axis of dopamine, it's like, okay, do I want to scroll or do I want to like write a book? And it's like, why do you want to write a book? It's like, cause it's fun. And then it's like, okay, so literally like if you say what that is, it's like the acquisition of dopamine, if we're like super scientific about it. And the reason that I'm like super scientific about it is because it's like, okay, your brain is going to make the calculation that, okay, if we're doing this thing to get dopamine, then you know what's a really easy way to get dopamine? Scrolling. And it also won't require like any work from us. Like it won't require, and it's going to see that, it's going to see how much effort it needs to put in to get the results. And then it's going to do that thing. And so like, I point this out because the people, because I ask people, I'm like, what is your purpose in life? Like, what are you here to do? And like the people who I find are the most stuck are people who are like, I want to maximize my happiness. And I'm like, and I'm actually like, this is going to sound so weird. I'm actually like, that is a terrible strategy. That is an awful strategy. I think people who try to maximize their happiness are some of the most unhappy people in life. And the people who accept that life is going to suck sometimes don't like they end up getting more happiness because it gives them the grit to overcome that step of the motivation process. So like, this is what I mean. So like, why do you, so like when I ask people, like whenever people come to me and they tell me like I really want to do this thing, but I'm not motivated to do it. And I'm like, okay, let's get to the core of what that really means. Why are you doing this thing? Like, what's the purpose of you doing it? The number one thing I hear when it comes to people who are unmotivated to do an activity is their motivation is pleasure. It's fun. Because we have an ultimate cheat code. As an advanced society, we have the ultimate cheat code, which is social media, because that will give you stimulation. It will give you distraction. It will activate your ego. It will do pretty much a diet version, empty calories version of everything you want from these things that actually require a lot of difficult, hard work, like working out or writing a book or whatever. And so like, when your brain is calculating which it wants to do, it's never gonna pick the hard thing when your only goal is enjoyment. Because you're like, no, I want this special kind of enjoyment. And it's like, we don't care. All you care about is like your brain doesn't care. It's like, all I know is that you want dopamine. So here's a way to get dopamine. I don't get why you're complaining. And like that's logical of the brain to do, because like you're asking it for something and it's giving it to you, and it's actually way easier than it needs to, than like you were trying to do this stupid way where like you're trying to do this stupid way where like you try and like do this super hard thing that comes with a lot of the opposite emotions. It comes with a lot of difficulty, it comes with a lot of shame, it comes with all this. Dude, you can get all the dopamine for no cost. So why would you ever pick the other thing? And then we analyze people who are able to do these things, and we say like, oh wow, look how much better they are than me, because like they can deal with the negative emotion of these things because they're that dedicated to getting dopamine. And it's like, no, the reason that they do it is actually to not get dopamine. There's actually a higher purpose of them doing it. So like, let me give you an example. So like I do karate. Like, do you know why from the day I started karate, I did not like take a day off? Other than when I was sick, because you shouldn't work out or do physical activities when you're sick. Like that's like the one exception to all these rules, is that I don't think you should ever do physical activities when you're sick. But why do you think I did that? So like there were days where I just didn't want to do it because it wasn't fun. Like my brain did come to the calculation, okay, this thing isn't fun. I'm not having a good time, therefore we shouldn't do it. But like, do you want to know why that had zero power over what I did? Because from day one, I decided that I wasn't going to do it for the purpose of, I wasn't going to do karate for the purpose of having fun. That's what would have destroyed my motivation. I would have never wanted to do anything ever again if that was actually the reason I wanted to do it. The reason I wanted to get into karate was because one day I wanted to teach people how to defend themselves. It's crazy. It's wild how much that sort of thing can motivate you. Because then it's not about you anymore. Do you guys get that? Like when you do stuff for yourself, it is the hardest stuff to do. It's like so difficult to do stuff for yourself. Why is that? Because then you're on the axis of dopamine. How much dopamine you are getting determines whether or not you do something, period. But when stuff becomes outside of yourself, you are able to be invincible. You're able to do whatever you want. And so whenever I would be like, I don't want to do it, I'm like, it's literally not about whether or not we want to do it. And you know what? You know what the beautiful side to that is? I could still get the happiness on the days that I'm motivated. And there's more happiness because I'm like, oh, I look back at my life and I'm like, oh, look, like, this is awesome. Thank you, past Dylan. You did the stuff that we thought was boring. And then it's like, and then you wake up one day and you realize you're like, wait, I'm one of those guys that like I used to be jealous of, who can like withstand the pain. And like Dr. Gay has a lot of great videos on the stuff I'm talking about. It's called Dharma. But once you discover that for yourself, it's beautiful. Like you become like this person that can withstand like any amount of pain as long as you have a higher purpose. I'm telling you guys, whenever I run into people who are basically altruism and the desire to help others made you motivated to do the thing. Yes, and like it's not because I'm like a good person. That's like literally, it has like nothing to do with it. It's literally like when you do like, because think about it, like even people who are like depressed go like have this exact same thought process. It's like, oh, how did you how did you do that thing so easy? It's like, oh, well, my friend needed help with this thing. And it's just like, well, how do you have the motivation to help other people and not yourself? It's like, because your dopamine is irrelevant. Your reinforcement is irrelevant. You're not doing it for a particular feeling. You're doing it for the sake of an external duty to other people. Like, so So whenever I see people who are super motivated to like write a book, for instance, it's like because they have a story that they think people are going to get a lot of enjoyment out of. And so when they make the decision to write the book, and when they're having days where they're not motivated at all to write the book, what do they think to themselves? Do they think, okay, I need to ignore all the reasons that I'm unmotivated? Do I need to, oh no, I need to find more, like, I need to find more reasons that it'll be fun. I need to find better ways to make it fun. Like, no, they just simply think to themselves, this is why it's so easy for them. It takes no mental energy for people like me and these other people who have figured this out. They literally just think like, okay, well, whether or not I enjoy it right now doesn't matter, because like my enjoyment has no bearing on whether or not like my enjoyment is a separate factor from the fact that these people like there are people in the world who want to be entertained, and I think I can fulfill that promise. Or if it's a nonfiction book, there's information I want to get out to the world that I really think can be valuable to people. Like, so find a purpose to this sort of stuff and you will be like infinitely motivated to do it. I tell people all the time, like I am one of like, not to toot my own horn, I'm one of the most productive people I know. Like just in sheer terms of like doing stuff that like other people like are like, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could work out 3 times a week for 3 years straight. I wish I could like stick to my diet. I wish I could like I wish I had a consistent like amount of time I'm streaming. Oh, I wish that I could like do karate. I wish that I could do karate every day. Oh, I don't even do karate every day, but like that, like this sort of stuff, like I do that stuff all the time. And like the beautiful thing is that like, even if there's not a duty, habits have taken it over. That's a whole separate thing. But in order to cultivate those habits, there was a higher order for why I wanted to do 90% of the things. And you know what's great? There's also this cool thing. It's part of Atomic Habits. It's actually one of the self-help books that I actually do recommend, because I actually think it's really, really good for specific types of people, like specific types of cognitive fingerprints. I think that book's very, very helpful in a lot of ways. Like, is that you can stack the habits. So like, for instance, like if I don't like working out, I can be like, okay, after I brush my teeth every day, I'm going to work out. Like immediately after I brush my teeth. And then when you pair that habit with a habit you want to cultivate, then it's like, oh, okay. So now the second habit doesn't take a lot of effort because my brain gets a signal, time to do this thing. And then you're done with that. But like, that's besides the point. So like, you know, with the reason that I'm able to study psychology for literally hours a day, I literally study psychology for roughly 2 hours a day. And even when I'm not in school, like even when I'm not doing it for a test and stuff like that, the testing stuff is actually separate. I do 2 hours outside of school every day for stuff that they don't tell me to research and stuff like that. It's like, how do you do that? And it's like, because it's part of my internal duty. Like one day I'm going to have like a client, and then they're going to be like, I'm going to have someone just come to me in general and be like, hey, I'm really depressed, and like I have a plan, and I'm gonna be gone tomorrow and stuff. And it's just like that, like, and I'm gonna need to know what to say to them. That's what motivates me. Like, it's not so like how much dopamine I get from the studying is literally completely irrelevant. I could care less whether or not I'm excited to learn today. It's literally because like one day that's gonna happen, and I'm gonna need to know what to do. Psychology developments just make me think even stronger that there's no free will with all the small details that influence our brain and how they're... Yeah, I would tend to agree. Like, I would tend to, like... I think we just act on, like, the, I think we just act on, like, the information that we have. And, like, that's the thing, is that, like, unfortunately, the lack of free will is then negative data that puts into your brain... that it puts in your brain, because then like if we don't have free will, then you know a lot of people then are like, oh, so I can choose to not do anything because like, oh, I couldn't have chosen any other way. It's like, no, like it's just like your brain is reacting a specific way to the data you have. You still like, it's such a weird way to describe it, but like I'm like I think that basically, like, if you want to get scientific, free will doesn't exist. but like I think that like acting in a way, like living your life as if it did exist is so much more optimal than living it in the way that it does, because like I just believe it karmically, like in the way that like everything has cause and effect. So I think that you shirking responsibility and saying, "Oh, well, it couldn't have happened any other way," is going to that is going to have a cause and effect of having you do nothing in life. Whereas if you have the data of like, "Oh, we have free will, we can do anything we want," then you will act in accordance with that. I hope that makes any sense. Like it's like we don't have free will in the sense that like we're just acting upon like the data that our brain has, but I think that like choosing choosing to adhere to the law of just like, oh well, nothing's my fault ever because we don't have free will, I think that that is a choice that can lead to less positive outcomes. Whereas I think that people who choose to believe in like things like free will, or at least act as if we do, like make the best decisions, because people will often use lack of free will as an excuse to just not do anything. And I think that that's absolutely like a thing that can happen. And so like it's really weird. But in the same way that like people with depression are actually better at predicting outcomes, people with depression are actually better at predicting outcomes than people without depression, but that like doesn't mean that like depression is correct. It means that in order to live a functional human life, you need to have some fundamental sense of optimism. So like being illogical is actually more logical than being purely logical. Um and so it's kind of weird because we think that like logic is just logic and there's no like nuance to it. But it's like, no, you can be like so logical that it's illogical. This is where things like perfectionism come into play. Because like you're right, it's not going to be perfect. But then like if you let that control you, then you're not going to do anything. So it's actually better sometimes to be impulsive. I think each person reacts differently to the loss of belief on free will. I know some are determinists will deny free will and have a pretty good optimal life. Like yeah, like that's what I mean. It's like it's just very dangerous. I just see it as like a very dangerous thought pattern because like I've seen a lot of like bad outcomes and like it's a very easy pipeline into nihilism, but like there's a nuance to that because like I mean, like I said, like I don't really believe in free will, and yet like I live my life as if there is free will. Like I don't let that ever like take away my sense of responsibility. Because I don't think that that's what it means at all. So yeah, like I think that like when you find the sense of duty, you're going to be able to like just like and you can even find it where you can even look for it in places that like you don't currently have it. So like if I want to be a writer, but like I feel like there's no more but I feel like I'm not enjoying it and stuff, like instead like think about who you're writing the book for and what that's going to give to them. And channeling that energy is what gives people the power to overcome hardship. Like being able to being able to like always be to like be purposeful about why you do certain things and when you do them. Oh, I forgot to get seeds. But always being purposeful about that stuff and being like it just lets you do it infinitely. Like it's just like what, like, you know, want to know what reinforces me working out more than ever? It's not people being like, oh wow, dude, you look huge. Like it's not like people doing that sort of stuff. It's literally like when someone needs help like lifting something, and because I work out all the time, I'm able to lift it for them. I'm able to provide a duty or service. And there's a lot of times, especially with like people like with my grandma and everything, there's a lot of times where like I where like that they need my help with something that like I just coincidentally have the ability to do because I work out. Um so like that's what I mean is that like it's so powerful how reinforcing that can be when you realize what what good things can come out of you doing that. Um so yeah, that's just kind of my view on that. I think it's very powerful, so I think find a do like don't live life based on what dopamine levels you can get from things. Live a life of duty, and weirdly you're going to be even more fulfilled than if you were living for yourself. Um because then you're not trapped in the limitations of what is pleasurable to you. You are then given infinite power because like the world can use more of anything. What do you do when you look internally? You don't produce anything because to you like nothing is better than going on your phone. But like what do you do when like you find something that like the world needs? Like any amount of production you create that is positive for the world. Any amount of production you create that is positive for the world is going to be helpful regardless of your pleasure level. And so like knowing that it will give someone 1 unit of dopamine is absolutely worth it giving you 0 units of dopamine. And this doesn't mean that like and this isn't personality dependent either. Like this literally isn't due at all to this isn't due at all to people being like oh well I'm a good person or well no I'm just not a very charitable person. Like this is a fundamental property of the human mind according to like people like the yogis who I tend to agree with on most mental health subjects. Um so yeah, that's my take. That's my take on that. Uh if you have any questions once again please let me know. 'Cause I'm trying to think of stuff to talk about. Um, because I've been talking about that for a good like hour now. Um, I just think that like the axis of dopamine isn't productive. Whenever people I don't think anyone is more immune to dopamine than any other person. That's a lie. I guess addictions like do that sort of, but I mean like in the sense of like I don't think that like it is simply your personality to have a duty or it is simply your personality to like be like oh no it's my personality to like have a dopamine life, like to have a dopamine centered life. I don't believe that. I think it's like fundamental to all human beings, and I think that like you simply are on the axis of you are simply either on or off the axis of dopamine, and when you find a purpose, you're free from that axis. And I genuinely think that it's a much better life because it fills you with more things like serotonin as opposed to dopamine, which tend to have kind of an inverse effect, even though it's kind of an overgeneralization. Um, do you think every person can get better with therapy, or are there some cases that people just can't get better and have a functional life? So I think that like I think that like this might be kind of like a so I think that this is kind of potentially naively optimistic, but like I think that like according to like the principles of the mind, I think that I think that the principles of the mind and things like spirituality, I think everyone has the potential to get better um and like recover. Um and like people will say that like this is simply not true because of things like where is she? Um People will often point out that this isn't true because it's like, well, we have all these studies on like this many people are treatment resistant, they're therapy resistant, this many people are medication resistant and stuff like that, everything like that. I think medication is like a lot more reliable of like people can just be biologically resistant to it. I think treatment is way too volatile to be like oh, you're just therapy resistant as a whole. I guess you can define that by like the Western method, but even then it's like so broad. Whereas like we have data that like essentially like meditation is effective for like every single like mental disorder that we've tried it on. And it's like, why is that? Like, like my personal, like this could be totally wrong, but like my personal interpretation of that is because like, you know how we just talked about like my solution to motivation was not to make things that are hard more fun, because then you're still on the axis of fun. My solution to that was moving away from the axis of dopamine altogether. Like, stop basing what you do on what's going to give you the most amount of dopamine. I don't think that's a good way to like go through life in general. And so in that same way, what I think that a lot of meditation and a lot of spiritual concepts, like, and this is why people have like a lot of success with this sort of stuff, is that like, I think that meditation allows you to be removed from the axis of suffering. So that might sound like really weird, but like, I think that there's like legitimately like, there's a, I think there's like an axis of suffering and like inner peace. Like, I think that like I've said a lot of times before, I think that people are able to how do I put this? Sorry, I'm just trying to collect my thoughts. Like I have said before, people are able to like connect with their inner self, which is like nitty. Like, we'll never understand it, but like you can understand that there is a fundamental you that is not emotional. Like, it is not based in emotion. You are simply the thing that experiences. And through that, you will gain a sense of life that is no longer, that the value of is no longer dependent on your subjective sense of suffering. And like, this is why I think meditation is so unbelievably valuable, is because it's like the only known way that people consistently can get in touch with that part of their existence. The part of their existence that is like, yeah, like I could be really emotionally distressed right now and yet somehow at peace. Like, there's a level of distress and I can be free of that axis. And that sounds weird, but like, think about it in the exact same way that we just talked about things like think about it in the exact same way we just described things like, what was it? Like motivation and stuff like that. Like, it's just like, that sounds weird to be like, well, if dopamine is the reward pathway of the brain, then how could I possibly be motivated without it? And it's like, the way that you're motivated without dopamine is just to simply not make decisions based on how much you're gonna get. Break free from your programming, not in a matrix sort of way, but I mean like humans are programmed to act based on dopamine, but like humans are like the only things that can resist the urge to like comply with their programming. So like, you know, like if an animal saw like food and it was hungry, it could just make the decision like, yeah, like it doesn't make the decision to eat. It just eats. Like, it's just like, yeah, I have to. It's food. I'm going to go eat, of course. But like, we're able to do that. And in that same way, human beings have like an emotional axis of existence where it's like, how good I feel about life depends on how much dopamine I get, how much of a purpose I feel like I'm for, like, how much of a purpose I feel like I'm contributing to, all this sort of like stuff that we attach value to. And like there is a way to get to a state of being that is simply independent from like there's a way to get freedom from that axis and exist in a way that is essentially just like you understand that nothing is purely good or bad. You're just like, oh, that just simply is. That just simply exists. And like I think that meditation is so powerful because it has a lot of physiological and neurological effects and everything. Like we literally see in the brain like actual chemical neurological sort of like pathway changes. We see this consistently. And like I could just explain it away with like, yeah, meditation helps that because like it calms you down, it does all this stuff, which is like true, like through the breath techniques and everything, it actually does do that. But I think that much more importantly, the reason it can help any mental illness is because like mental illness takes place on a specific axis of the brain, and through my belief system of how the brain works, I think that it is possible to to gain freedom from that part of the brain altogether. I think that that's where things like enlightenment come from. So my short answer is like, yes, I think that there are people that I think every person can get better, but there's a caveat because it's not exactly adherent to your question. Yeah, sure, of course. Yeah, ask me anything. Like, as long as you're not violating, like, the terms of service of Twitch, then, like, I'm cool with getting asked anything. Yeah, I'm an open book. I just can't answer anything that's, like, overly personal, which, like, I'm fine answering philosophical questions. It just, like, you know, don't ask anything, like, too overly, like, you know, I don't know how to describe it as. It's just like, I'll let you know if it's out of bounds, but I think it's worth it to ask anyways. But like, yeah, like I think that like you can gain freedom from that part of yourself. And because I think that like the dimension of mental illness only exists on like one axis of the mind. And like same way that like duty or dharma can like move away from the axis of dopamine and act independently of that and allow you freedom from that. So where it's like before we were like, oh, this determines what I do. Now we can be like, oh, well, it doesn't determine what I do. Now it's like, oh, okay, this thing determines like now I'm free from the axis of mental illness. So like dopamine still exists even though it doesn't determine what you do. In that same way, like your depression can still exist in one dimension, but you are no longer enveloped in the dimension that's kind of like on fire, you know? What's your view on anti-natalism, which is the view that bringing new things into the world is immoral? If not mistaken, there are some Buddhist texts that can interpret seeing birth as a negative thing. So, like, I don't think that anything is inherently positive or negative. That sounds, like, weird. Like, I think that, like, I have my own biases and beliefs, but, like, I don't think that I'm, like, there's no way to ever know if I'm correct about something, if that makes any sense. Like, and so, like, that sounds like a very, like, I know that when I was very opinionated, that sounded like a very, like, wishy-washy thing to say. But, like, now I more experientially kind of understand what people who say that are kind of talking about. Like, I'm just like, I can have a strong belief and understand that, like, it doesn't, just because I believe it doesn't make it, like, correct technically. And so, like, I don't, and one of my beliefs is that, like, you know, whether I think it's right or wrong is like completely just like my take, but like because like I think that I think that it's like there's so much nuance to like, does doing this entire blanket thing at all ever is that a bad thing to do? I feel like there's so much like nuance when it comes to that sort of like viewpoint that it's so hard for me to be like, well, it's just my opinion, but, and then make a statement on it. Like, I feel like in general, I do not think that bringing new things into the world is inherently a bad thing. If you're looking for a concrete answer, I definitely don't believe that, like, it is immoral. Because even if it did end up with negative consequences, I don't think that everything that produces negative consequences is immoral. I think I think immoral comes out of like malice. I think immoral behavior is like I wish harm against this thing, or like I am negligent of the harm that this will bring. And I think you can absolutely like I think I think like things are not good nor bad. They're not like fire isn't bad. It simply exists. It hurts people, but it's like it's not inherently a bad thing. It's only like bad to us when it's in the context of harm or destruction. So like in that same way, I don't think existing is like a crime. Like and I think that like it's a I think that like people if people have like different views then like that's fine. I just think that in my personal opinion, it's not any like far from me to say like this thing is like it is immoral to, you know, like create something. That's just like I don't know. I just don't agree with that personally. Um but but I assume that there's some like nuance to it in general. Like I'm sure that it's not like this dogmatic like creating anything ever is bad. Um but isn't possible to commit an unethical decision due to ignorance. So like that's like kind of weird. It's kind of like a weird subject when you think about it because like I'm not trying to like give you politician answers where it's just like it's like, hey, what do you say about the economy being bad? And I'm just like, oh, the economy is in the state that it is in right now. Next question. Like I'm not trying to dodge the question. It's just generally like I think that it's like hard to say because like I think that someone can do something and someone can do something that they think is right, but we think is wrong. And we can view that person as simply being ignorant. But like no one can know who is like truly ignorant and who is truly not ignorant. Because like we only have the data that we have. So like even if like so like let's say there are like yeah, so like think about it this way. So like my example is just like I'm gonna show you guys real quick. And then I'll wrap up stream. But I think this is an interesting question. So like the assumption when we call someone ignorant is that like they have this much of the picture and like we have this much of the picture. Like and like the assumption is that like this is like the maximum, right? It's like we have like all the data to make the decision that it's ethical. But like the reason why I say that we can never truly know if something's unethical or ethical is that like the person who's doing the unethical thing likely sees it the other way around. Like it's an ego statement to say that we have better information than the other person. Like it's like a comparative, like potentially emotionally charged thing to say like, well, you're just stupid and immoral and evil. Like we don't know what data they have. We don't know if like they could have had the data that you think that they don't have and they just simply are like that. To me it doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense because like even if this is like them and this is us, like my point is that like the actual full understanding of the situation could be here. But like we have no idea of knowing until we get to this point that like there's a greater height of morality that exists. So that's like why I'm giving these like politician examples, because like I'm like, this is why you once you understand this, you like get that like opinions truly just are opinions, because like we think of our past self as ignorant, and right now we are like in this moment it's like I am not ignorant because I have the information that I have, which to us as like it's literally part. This is why this is also what I'll bring up. So like So, like, cognitive dissonance dictates that our brain is uncomfortable with the idea of thinking that we don't know what we're talking about. Because, like, think about, like, the adaptive reason why we'd want to know what we're talking about. It's like, if our brain thinks that there's information that we don't know about something that's important to us, because the way that we get around this is just simply dismissing it and saying like, oh well, information that I don't know doesn't need to be known because it's not important, because I have the important information. If there's important information out there that we don't know or ignorant to, our brain doesn't like that. Because think about that, if we're in the jungle and we don't know something important in the jungle, then like that could be anything. It's like the fear of the unknown, and oh no, our survival mechanisms kick in, and that's bad. So our brain always creates an uncomfortable feeling when we don't know something important. And so our brain, because of cognitive dissonance, will always convince us that we have all of the most important information about any given situation. And so because of this, this leads us to always viewing things in hindsight as ignorant. And like, but do you get the cognitive bias of like, oh, now I'm smart, now I have all the information, but like tomorrow you're gonna look at present you as ignorant by comparison. So it's like, how is that possible? It's because we need to understand that like everyone has the cognitive bias that other people are ignorant if they disagree with them, because the only way that they could not come to this decision is if they didn't have information, which to be fair is fair. Like that's not completely illogical. Like you can actually just, there can actually just be people out there who just don't have all the information, but it's very dangerous to assume that the other person simply just doesn't have the information and needs to be educated. Instead, that's why I advocate for just asking people without a sarcastic tone. Genuinely just ask them like, hey, why do you believe what you believe? Can you like explain it to me? And like they might know something that you don't, but you're never going to understand that until you're never going to even listen to them when you assume that they have nothing to give, because you assume that the deficiency is with them and not you. And think about how likely they are to listen to you if they have the same assumption. If they think that they're this bar and you're this bar, then like they're going to come as a teacher, and then you're going to come as a teacher, and then neither of you are there as a student. And the way to have conversations is to both take on the teaching and student role. You should teach about why you believe that what you believe, and you should hear why they believe what they believe. And you should kind of collaborate and come to like, oh, this is why we disagree. Here's the core reason why we disagree. So yeah, that's my take. That's why I'm always like that. Before I used to think that this was kind of like radical centrism. I used to kind of think that this idea of like, well, I don't know, was like, oh, in order to protect my ego, I'm just going to say that I never have an opinion so that way I can never be wrong. Like I thought this was essentially cognitive dissonance, but I think it's cognitive dissonance to have it the opposite way. I think it's just like normal to just say like, yeah, I don't know if I'm right. I still have my opinions, but it's always important to preface like, I might not have information that is important, regardless of how obvious the internet tries to make certain things be. Like, well, it's just obvious that you should believe this thing. It's just obvious that you should believe this thing. Like, nothing is truly obvious. Like, because like, if things are obvious, then like everyone should actually know them. But like, there's clearly like a miscommunication that gets caused through saying through assuming that other people are inherently ignorant if something doesn't line up to you about the way that they believe. So like, I'm not saying that they're right, and I'm not saying that there aren't just straight up ignorant people out there who were sheltered and everything like that. My point is that like, whenever I disagree with someone, I don't assume that they're ignorant. Whenever someone hurts another person, I don't assume that it's because of a deficiency in knowledge or a deficiency in information. I assume that it's just like, okay, what the information that we have is different, because like we were talking about free will, like it's like, okay, our behaviors manifested differently, so what is so different about the information that we have? And then I just try and talk with them and come to the conclusion of like, okay, what information is different? So yeah, that's kind of my take on that when it comes to a lot of ethical things. Like if you want my subjective, just like me opinion, I don't personally think that it's a bad thing to bring things into the world. But like, I also don't like know that it's not a bad thing. Like, I could hear an argument and like be realistically swayed by them and just like be like, oh, okay, that makes sense, and change my belief. Like, I'm open to that. But currently in this moment, if you asked me to just give my answer, I'm like, yeah, no. But like that's why I preface it, is because like I could be this one or this one, but like we should just never assume that we are at the height of knowledge at any given moment, because we know from hindsight that that's just BS. Like, we can never ever know if we have all the information to anything. There's nothing on the planet that we'll ever know whether we have all the information on, because in every singular moment we think that we do. And then we get more information that we didn't know existed. And then we're like, oh, I was so stupid. I didn't know that this information was out there. But now that I know that information, now I know everything. And then the next day is, oh, now I know everything. Oh, now I know everything. It's just this endless cycle. And so I'm just like, I'm just breaking the cycle by acknowledging that, like, I don't care how confident I am in my opinion, or how strongly I emotionally feel about my opinion. I just acknowledge that there is literally always a chance that I just don't know certain information. And even if that information does come to light, it could still not change my opinion, but I need to be open to the fact, or else I'm just not going to grow. Because then I'm just going to live in this reality that I've created, and my mind's going to get rusty if I like don't allow new views in. But that's really interesting. I didn't know that there was like schools of thought that like bringing anything into the world is immoral. From me, like, in my view, like, the reason I say I'm Buddhist is because like I don't think anything is good or bad, and I think that that's like a largely like, and that's like a Buddhist like teaching, is that like it's what our mind colors of the situation that determines its badness, like a pen doesn't have dopamine in it, and it doesn't have cortisol in it. It doesn't have stress. It doesn't have it's just our perception. Like you know, like if I steal something from you, like I emotionally think that that's like a bad thing. And even logically, I think that that's bad. But like, you have to understand that like, even though I believe that it's bad, like it's because of specific reasons of the human mind. Like, I think that it's bad because it causes pain. Therefore, there is this emotional coloring of my morality that like, if you do something like that, if you do something that causes pain to another person unjustly, then you are like immoral. Like, so, you know, there's like that sort of like, so there's that sort of like coloring to that. And so, like, it's just simply acknowledging, like, I can have my beliefs, but, like, nothing is inherently good or bad. You just have to acknowledge that, like, you're always coloring your view of things through preconceived notions and the way that your mind reacts. Like, everything your mind has constructed about its beliefs is, like, a construct. It is not inherent to the universe. It's not, like, a law. So that's actually what... So, like, to me, in my view, like, believing that making new things is immoral is like, in my view of Buddhism, kind of like anti-Buddhist. Like, in the same way that I think that like, you know, like this might be a little controversial, but you know, as someone who was raised very like Catholic, like I think that like there are a lot of very, very Catholic people, or people who consider themselves very Catholic, who partake in very like hateful things. And to me, that's like, as the way that I was brought up for Catholicism is very anti-Catholic, actually, because like it kind of goes against, because like the things that they believe and preach and everything are actually going directly against what I was brought up to believe as a kid. And in that same way, like I think that like a lot of things like those Buddhist texts you're talking about, like a lot of things have the potential to like kind of contradict my view of like my own belief system that I identify as Buddhism. Um and so like yeah, there's just a lot of nuance to it. Um but that's like why I think that like, you know, it's just like a way of life that I identify with, but I don't like the more extreme and less nuanced things get like that, like, oh, if you do this, it's always bad or it's always good. Those are the types of belief systems that I tend to like stray away from, is like the concrete bad and good, which is why like, that's why I'm like Buddhist, is because like I moved away from that. And Buddhism is like, it's not a religion, it's just a way of life that kind of believes that like everything is just what it is. Like it can cause pain, that doesn't mean it's inherently bad. It can cause pleasure, that doesn't mean it's inherently good. That's all it means. Like, so but obviously don't take that to an extreme. Like I still believe certain things are bad. Like doesn't mean I don't. It's just I'm acknowledging that that is a belief, it is a construct, but it doesn't mean it doesn't have value. It just means that like I think it has value, but that value came from me. That's all it acknowledges. It's not about not having any sort of emotional fluctuation or belief system, or like belief in ways that you think things should be gone about. It just simply means like acknowledging the nature of the universe. Um, but yeah. Um, okay, cool. If we don't have any other questions, I'm feeling good. I think I can wrap up for the day. But I had a good time. We talked about a lot of stuff, actually, even though I didn't have a question to start out with. And also, if you don't want me to answer the question now, and you even want me to like start the next video with it, you can always ask questions either in YouTube chat or in Twitch chat. And I can and you know, I can always like just start off next time talking about it. If it's like a more long question. But other than that, if anyone wants to come on the show with me, just let me know. And just message me on Discord or comment on YouTube, or Twitch chat or whatever. We can talk about psychology stuff. And whether or not you come in chat and text it out to me, or you DM me with a message, or you comment a message or whatever, I'm happy to answer questions in any format. But yeah, I had a really good time. So yeah, I'll see you guys later.